Good morning, everybody. As been announced that I'm not a Minister of Energy. I'm an official in the department. Firstly, apologies from the Minister of Energy. She has fallen sick during the night, and short notice, I was asked to stand in for her. I couldn't speak to her in person, but I did speak to her secretariat, and official apologies have been sent through to the organisers. I can assure you, working with the Minister for quite a number of years, that's not a way she treats invitations, and also in terms of opening functions such as this nature. Energy is very close to her heart, and it's not only a political issue, but it's something that she has a passion for. And I will try to speak to her later today, depends on her state, but I can assure you she would love to be here. So for that being said, I can start officially by just recognizing some of the individuals that's here. I understand that Mr. Vincent Noka, the International Energy Agency, is present. I want to acknowledge him. All representatives of various private entities, government entities, from government departments, different spheres of government departments. Ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. Thank you very much for having this opening been done by the Minister. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read his speech in terms of the fact that what's prepared for her. Unfortunately, I know when she's presenting a speech, she always worked in a bit of more energy into it, but I can't do that. I just have to keep it clinical. There's one or two things that I will add that I know that can be added, so my apologies for that. I think it's important that in terms of a very important conference like this, where there's, my apologies, a focus on the drive with respect to the energy agenda of Africa. There is a couple of issues that need to be put in question. There's 4 questions that can be asked, and even more. But I think those questions can be dealt with, say that we can ask, what is the Africa energy agenda? We can also ask, what is our African energy outlook? What are the key drivers of the energy Africa agenda? And also, what are the key ingredients of the energy agenda mix? And I hope that these questions will be answered during this conference. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's important that we need to also take cognizance of the fact that we have also, through the UN Secretary General, Ban Ki-moon, have given us a direction in terms of where we need to go in terms of sustainable development around energy. He, in 2012, announced the so-called Sustainable Energy for All initiative, which is built on 3 pillars. The one is to say that ensure universal access to modern energy by 2030, but also the second pillar is to say doubling the rate of improvement of energy efficiency, and thirdly, then also double the shares in renewable energy in the global mix, and that's a target for 2030. Now, irrespective of what we want to deal around those 3 objectives or pillars, we need to take cognizance of the fact that you're going to need energy in its different forms, in a different mix, either from the primary source right through to the way it's been distributed and been delivered to the various customers. I think if you want to carry on and try to address those 3 objectives, we need to also ask ourselves, is there a plan for it? Do you have a plan to deliver it? Because there's a view sometimes that we're just carrying on in energy. We just look what is the demand. We try to kill the demand as quickly as possible with a sort of supply that's available and is quickest to sell. I think we need to concentrate much more on how to plan. And I'm going to start off a bit closer to home and then move into the continent. The first issue that I want to deal with is around the planning, that we have, as South Africa, have also been faced with these challenges. And what we come up with to say that we need to stand back in terms of electricity supply to say, what are our needs, what is our supplies, and also how do you operate in a global context with energy? And we put down a couple of criteria that was developed through different policies over the last 10, 12 years of government, and eventually came up with the so-called Integrated Resource Plan, the IRP, 2010. Now, a lot of conferences have been opened by using that theme, but I think I just want to also use this opportunity to focus on that. The whole emphasis in the IRP 2010, by the way, that's a living document that is that have been published in 2010, end of 2000, actually beginning of 2011, but it's a living document. We're right now as government busy to update that. It will also, we're just waiting for the finalization and the publication of the draft integrated energy plan that will be launched in the near future. Just waiting for cabinet approval in terms of publishing that for general public comment. So that will, for the IRP will form an underbuild for the IEP. But in terms of the plan itself, you need to look at where you want to go, what's your resources. And one thing that came out of this whole, my apologies, IRP 2010 plan for us was the fact that we actually have had to come up with a full understanding of what is our energy mix. And as you know, 95% of our electricity is generated via coal generation. So we had to relook that completely. And one of the very important aspects that we are focused on is to look at renewable energy. And it's in the new build program up to 2030, 42% of all new generation will be generated by the means of renewable energy sources. And in part of that, the whole renewable energy independent power producing entity and process have been launched in August 2011, and it was divided in different windows, and the first window closed officially, financial closure was reached November last year, of which 28 entities have been formally been contracted to deliver a vicinity of 1,450 megawatts of renewable energy. And then a second window was also advertised and will be closed in the next couple of weeks by the end of April, which another 19 entities will be added with the additional 1,200 megawatts in total of the allocated 3,600 megawatts that's been announced in August 2011. Linked to that also is the fact that we, except for the larger renewable energy projects, we're also going to, by the end of the year, advertise for interest with respect to smaller projects below 5 megawatts to ensure that we're also capturing the smaller participants in renewable energy in this regard. I think it's also important to if you look at your energy mix, that we also need to look at other sources. We as a country have been using 5% of our electricity generation by the means of nuclear. So it has been also as part of the IRP been an indication that nuclear will also make up a part of our energy mix for the future. There's currently various studies undergo, and final announcements will be made in the near future depending on the various financial, environmental and energy mix studies when completed either by Department of Energy, various other departments and agencies, but that process has been well structured and been communicated in news media extensively. I think what's also important is that we need to, if we talk about the supply, we also need to talk about the consumption. And unfortunately, I wasn't here when Andrew Itzinger made his presentation, but I presume that a portion of it would have been dealt with respect to energy efficiency, the way we consume electricity need to be controlled, but also in terms of making it practical and also attractive for consumers. Hence why government also launched the solar water heater program in terms of announcing that we want to install 1 million solar water heaters or geysers in the country. That program have kicked off in 2019, and up till to date 330,000 solar water heaters have been installed. It's quite a large number, but we would have liked to have seen more of those systems being installed to assist us on the energy efficiency demand-side management side. Unfortunately, the majority of these systems have been ventured into the low-pressure side, which have not added or assist us in terms of the energy efficiency component. But it had add a lot of social benefit and assistance to consumers that are utilizing those systems. Yes, it did offset some electricity consumption, because if you need hot water, you need some sort of means of heating it. In the majority of cases, it would have been a kettle or some sort of electrical appliance to heat up the hot water. In this case, that have been shifted. The program itself is divided in different phases. We just finished off the first phase, which is called the rebate phase, where the installment of these systems was done through the allocation that Eskom received through the MYPD2 cycle in terms of energy efficiency to leverage it through the installment of solar water geysers. We're now busy implementing the follow-up of that, which is not part of the Eskom allocation in the tariff application to NERSA, but it's an allocation from National Treasury to then cover up for the last, or cover the last 650,000 systems that need to be installed. That is done through a so-called contracting model process, where the focus in the first phase were to just to bring solar water geysers to households. In the second phase, it is not only to bring solar water geysers, but also to localize, to open up the local manufacturing environment in terms of allowing local manufacturers to manufacture at least 70% of the tanks and 70% of the auxiliary equipment for solar geysers in the country. So that is a process that we've now been finalizing. Contracting part has been done now, and I think it's very important that it's not only to bring a needed energy efficiency product like a solar water geyser to households, but also to create jobs with that, in terms of the fact that we are actually need to also stimulate our own economy and our own industry in terms of local manufacturing of these equipment. I think what's important in terms of the way forward is that if we need to operate as a country and looking at energy, I think it's important that we also need to look how we can be of assistance and take hands with the rest of Africa. I think what's important in this whole initiative is that the whole initiative from NEPAD specifically focus on the infrastructure development in Africa, the PIAT program, to promote social economic development with large infrastructural programs. And with that in mind, the South African government also has launched, as you know, the so-called PICC, the South African Presidential Infrastructure Coordination Committee, which consists of 18 different special integrated programs, so-called SIPs. Of those, one of them is specifically devoted to regional African integration in terms of infrastructural projects. And I think it's important also to make mention of the fact that as part of that, and while we're on the power and energy electricity conference, it's important also to note that the Grand Inga hydroelectrical project is now taking shape with an MOU that was signed with the DRC around about 3-4 weeks ago, in terms of ensuring that that project that's been on the horizon for so long now been taken off. It's going to be broken down in different phases, and the first phase is now the one that we concentrate on, but linked to that is also the transmission linkage between the project and various countries along the transmission line to South Africa. As you know, and I think it was maybe also being alluded by Andrew, is that we are running on a tight supply ratio at the moment, and it will be with us for the next couple of years. And our own internal generation capacity is not sufficient. We have to look into the region, which has been done for a number of years, for instance with Gabora Bassa, which currently for the last 4.5 weeks have not supplied electricity to the country due to the floods that have been hit that part of the country, that part of the continent. But terms of the regional integration, we need to look at those sort of projects. I think it's also important that within the whole SADC, Southern African Power Pool, will give it a stimulus if that project is also then up and running. I think what's important also is that if we only look at this point in time at electricity, but I think if we look at power, we also need to look at biofuels. Biofuels can and will play in the future a very important role, not in South Africa, but also in sub-Saharan Africa, where we have so much opportunities to implement biofuel projects, especially looking at the current price of fuels within the African region, which is actually double what it's supposed to be. There's a big opportunity for biofuels to enter that market. So Africa just recently have venture into that environment. We will make some announcements in the near future around the blending. Some blending proposals have been made, but the financial and technical models need to be finalized, and that announcement will be made in the near future. All that being said, and I want to end off, and I get an indication there from the back that my time is up. I think one of the big challenges that we're sitting with in Africa is that we have all these potential projects. We talk about Inga, we talk about the solar water geysers, which is actually something that is potential for the whole Africa. We talk about the various renewable energy programs. But what is found, and we also, as South Africa, has learned a very sad lesson around that in terms of the Medupi power plant, with respect to the fact that we got some serious labor challenges there, linked to the fact that we're sitting with a huge unskilled, unemployed labor communities, which is unhappy that they can't be given opportunities to work at these plants. And that brings me to skills development. We can develop so many roadmaps, so many plans, but if it's not linked to our skills development in a country, in a continent, these projects won't come off and can't develop because of skill shortages. So we need to invest in our youth, in our human, female component around the scarce resources that we have in the country, and it needs to be addressed not only by the formal structures, but also by the various developers and by the various private sector investors. With that couple of pointers, I want now to declare this conference open, and also thanks for the opportunity that the Minister of Energy was requested to open this. I thank you.